Okay, here we go. We're recording. So right before we started, David asked me, "Hey, can you hear this fan? Do you need me to turn it off?" And I was like, "I don't know. It sounds fine either way, pretty much." And he's like, "Well, I'm gonna leave it on because it's hot as balls."
You see, as you can see, the sun is setting.
It's true. I never actually filmed this late before.
No, man, I'm excited to be talking to you, be here.
It's so wild to see you on the other side of Purchase. It's pretty crazy. And on the other side of this, you were one of the last people I saw before all this happened.
True. For the siblings, right?
Actually, at Cambodian rock band.
Oh shit. That's
You
right.
got me into Cambodian rock
That's
band.
right. Holy shit. What a day, yo.
David was like, "These people are handing out tickets for a student matinee. If you say you're a student, I bet you'll get in for free." And my show had been canceled that day because it was the week before and somebody got sick for like Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice at Signature. And I just walked up to these people and they gave me a ticket thanks to you, David.
There we go.
Have you learned to like sort of maneuver the system by being like, "I'm a student"?
I mean, like, I do shit like that in real life, though. I do that actually really often. I like, I don't know. Sometimes I like to see what I could get away with and, like, just like finessing and shit.
Mm-hmm.
I think if there's one characteristic that I like to hold, close to my heart is finessing.
Let us just unpack what the past 2 years have been like for you. You just finished up a residency at the Public Theater as a writer, and now your work that you developed at the Public is being developed at the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center, and you're just starting a fellowship with New York Theater Workshop. All of these things coming out of my mouth feel like so surreal because those things feel so far away. But how does it feel to actually see that manifest?
Oh man, I mean, I am so lucky and happy and privileged to be able to have these things come into my life, and also like having worked for these things, but like specifically in a time like this where I could be very well just chilling in my bed for like 4 months not doing a single thing, you know what I mean? So it's really nice to have those resources and those like developmental places, and just like really find myself a part of a community at this time. I think is really important, you know what I mean? Because like it's so easy to feel isolated and alienated during these times, and I'm lucky enough to like develop a community during these times.
I always knew developing a community before anything could happen, even if like as an actor, like a playwright, your play is being produced somewhere else or you have a gig somewhere else. It's good to like form that home base artistically of people you can just count on, because when shit hits the fan, you want people there for you.
For real. I mean, and it's dope. I mean, yeah, I it's kind of like unbelievable the way shit happened, and I'm so glad that it did. And these things have been kind of, like my dream, you know what I mean, as a writer, to be part of these two institutions, you know what I mean? Like as a young writer, going to see a show at New York Theater Workshop, or like, this is also not my first time at the O'Neill. I was part of the O'Neill as like an actor like 4 years ago or 3 years ago. I forget. I think 2017 I was an actor, and I was like, yo, this place is like magical. And it's so much easier as an actor, because like I'm not really an actor, but like sometimes I get specifically for parts that are like me. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
I'm not going and auditioning for stuff. It's more like, oh, like this person is like a David Zhang in a way. So, that's pretty cool. Like,
that's kind of wild to me, because you wrote this play, Kidnapping Jane Doe, which was done at the Public and is being developed at O'Neill right now. And that main character just seems like you. And there's the similarities are real to how you talk, to like his identity, to all sorts of elements of like how he carries himself, and it's sort of slick and finessing like you through all sorts of crazy situations in that play. And I'm wondering what the decision to cast another actor was for that. Like, were you considered to play that?
Not really, and like I don't really want to be in my own place. Not yet, not right now. And you kind of go off your point, like obviously since I'm writing the piece, like I think people are inevitably going to be connecting me to like the only Asian character in the play because I'm Asian. It's so easy to do that. But at the end of the day, like the pattern in my play is that there's always like one Asian character, you know what I mean? And people always like, oh, that's David. But that's not necessarily true. Do you know what I mean? Like that Asian character in my play isn't always me. You know what I mean? It could be like a childhood friend growing up, or like a version of me that I felt like I could have been, or a version of me that I want to work towards. But like in a way, like I sprinkle myself in every single character replay that I write. You know what I mean? Whether it's just every single character in every play I write, I like to like.
So then a quick question that gets me curious, because one of the other characters in this play is the congresswoman who these two characters inadvertently kind of have to kidnap. How, as a writer, do you sprinkle parts of your personality into characters that are very different from you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, at the end of the day, like, she's a human, she's a person, she's a whole thing. I'm a whole thing. And like, when you're writing people, you have to somewhat, you kind of have to care whoever you write for, care about whoever you're writing about. And like, in the same way that I'm passionate about something, and in the same way that I love something, like she has to love something, and she has to be passionate about something, whether the world thinks is right or wrong. It's passion, it's love, it's what we want, and the things that we're willing to do to get what we want. You know what I mean? Like, and that applies to everybody, whether like she's a white woman and I'm an Asian man, and it's like it's a day and night difference, but at the end of the day, like, I have to pour my heart into her as well. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, every character you write deserves love, even the shittiest ones, or the ones who seem so far from you. I think that's why it's so exciting to see you in institutions like that, literally showing yourself in every character. And it shows because everybody down to like your stage directions is a character. I remember one of my favorite parts of Kidnapping Jane Doe is like the actor, and I think whatever her name was, who did it at the public, incredible actress. And on top of that, she was like, they move over like 6 inches. That might be one of my favorite stage directions I've ever heard.
I mean, and like, that's the spaces that you should be able to have fun. I mean, like everywhere, like, like my favorite thing about writing especially is like that I get to have fun, like in every the play. It's not just specifically restricted to like character, it's like
absolutely
whole thing.
So then let's actually get to like growing up and what your influences were writing, and like where you found the influences and inspirations for like the way you write now and the artists that you respect.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't think that I was going to be a writer growing up. You know what I mean? Like, that was never, I didn't find out what theater was until I was like, I think in 10th or 11th grade. And it was because like, I had like gotten into like a lot of trouble in high school and stuff. And I was like gonna like drop out of school to like work with my parents. They own like a Chinese takeout restaurant in the Bronx. And so I was gonna drop out so I could work there. And like, one of my guidance counselors, her name is Annie. Shout out to Annie, she changed my life. Like, she's the reason why, like, she basically gave me like a brochure for like an after school program called MCC Youth Theater Company. And I like went to audition that day for it. And like, that's kind of how I was introduced to theater. And like just writing, like before I was like a wild in high school, like, and just like academia wasn't my shit. Like, I would like write like
at high school. To me, it was just like me wearing the same sweatpants for 4 years. Like,
straight, right? Yeah, and I think like, like I'm sure that like even when I was like a senior in high school, I probably had like a fucking 4th, 5th grade reading level. You know what I mean? So like, you telling me that I was going to be in charge of putting words onto a paper, like, I was like, nah, that's definitely very far from reality, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
and you know, like someone who had a major impact in my life is Lucy Thurber. You know, like she's like a family member. She's a mentor. She's one of my closest friends, and like someone who I hold really dear to my heart.
Lucy and Jenna Worsham is like one of my favorite people. How did you make that introduction to Lucy at MCC?
Yeah, so I met Lucy Thurber through, because she was the teacher at the, like on the writing portion of that company. So there was like an acting side of it, and there was a writing side of it, the after school program. So she was in charge of the writing, and I initially auditioned for the acting part, but they kind of dragged a few of us over to the writing side so like they could hear out their work. So and she was just like, go write a scene or some shit like that. And I just wrote a scene, and she would just like keep writing, and I was like,
do you remember what the scene was?
I think it was like it was probably a scene that I wrote about like me going shop, like me, like a younger version of me, probably like 12 years old, going shopping with my mom and my aunt. And then, so like when I was little, they used to take me to like cookies, you know what I mean? And they used to make me try shit in the middle of the aisle. Like not even go to the dressing room. Like and I was like a chunky little kid. I was used to be like shy and embarrassed. And I'm like, I'm gonna put this shit on. They would just make me try like whole outfits in the middle of the aisle.
Oh my God.
Onto paper and stuff like that. And, you know, and it's really reflective of my writing style. You typically like, I, you know, if you could call my like realistic, you know, really close to life, pulling, you know, directly from my experiences or indirectly from my experiences. That's typically how I write.
I am wondering, from MCC, you started writing, and were you wanting to go to college?
I think, I mean, before MCC, I definitely was not thinking about going to college. You know, like I come from a family, like, you know, like immigrant parents. Like my parents ain't even make it past 5th grade, you know, and my brother, my older brother, he like dropped out of high school, you know. So like that was a reality for me, you know what I mean, not to finish school. But because I was introduced to theater, I felt like I had something to look forward to outside of what I was doing every day. You know what I mean? Just getting caught up in bullshit. So then like after I was introduced to theater, I was like, oh, like this is something that I can study, you know? So as I mentioned that I was like, initially I auditioned for the acting portion. So like I went to my first 2 years of college, I spent at Brooklyn College.
Oh, word.
Yeah, and I majored in theater. And college was so transformative for me, man. Like, because I have realized how dumb I was. Yeah, I would be in class just around everybody who was just way more prepared than me to be in that room. You know what I mean? I felt really alienated from everybody else. And I was just I started to get really mad about my upbringing and really mad about my education or my lack of education. You know, like I didn't speak up in college, and I just got so angry that I couldn't have conversations and I couldn't participate in class because I just did not know what was going on. It felt like people were speaking a language that I did not have access to, you know?
It's so crazy for me to imagine, right? I mean, I definitely feel that way still. I especially felt that way the moment after I graduated college and I started working with the Flea. Talk about the Flea. I know, but like I started like voicing my opinions right away about a play we just read, Popcorn Style, and I was like, well, this and that and this and that. And the artistic director was like, well, I wholeheartedly disagree with you. And I was like, okay, so this is what it is. And you just gotta like form your voice and also just maneuvering your way. It's what you were talking about with finessing, right? It's about like preparedness and finesse. It's about
it is about finessing, because like I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the times, and so like that space that I have to fill in where I'm not, informed or not smart in that way, like that's where finessing comes in. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
But yeah, that's where finessing comes in. And so, yeah, I just remember being in college and being like, yo, I'm so fucking dumb. Like, I can't even like talk to people about a paragraph I just read, you know what I mean? Like, I just did not have access to that. Like, it was me. Yeah. So then And then during that time, I started reading. Lucy Thurber had introduced me to James Baldwin, and I started reading him. And I remember the first time I read him, I was like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about, because I could not read. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I felt that way about Chekhov, and for a second, Stephen Adly Guirgis. Stephen
Yeah.
Adly Guirgis was actually the flip for me when I got introduced to his work. It was like, oh, I kind of understand. I felt like, because the way I don't talk very like fancy either, and like I've always considered myself kind of like a slower person, and that's sort of my own little like ego blocks and shit like that. I can talk well. That was that.
Man,
But
put words together.
exactly, man. Like in a institution like theater, people expect you, you know, that art form, and that's a whole conversation that's going on right now. It's like made for the elite, and it's run by the elite inadvertently. Even the people that like help you and give you your leg up, for so many, you know, black people I know, if we're gonna go here, and we probably fucking should, because it's like totally happening, and a lot of BIPOC people in theater have had to rely on like white people to get their foot in the door, and like have had to just make their way themselves, and like
Yeah,
as a
I've actually like had a contrary experience with theater. You know what I mean? Because um, like I didn't grow up with theater. Theater is not precious to me. You know what I mean? I just am
mm-hmm.
right. That's what I do, and that's my job, and that's what I love doing. But like at the end of the day, if theater ceases to exist tomorrow, like I'm gonna speak my shit in a different way. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So happy, and
Yeah.
so and like because that's my philosophy, and because that's the way I carry myself in this industry, you know, I don't hold theater to this hierarchy, because at the end of the day, I'm just like, yes, at the end of the day, we need this like institutions, and we need access to what they have, and like we're fucking sweating and doing all this shit and applying ourselves to be a part of these institutions. And at the end of the day, really, really, when you think about it, like they need us. You know what I mean? Um, and, and that's kind of how I carry myself. So like I haven't necessarily had an experience where I'm like I need a white institution to. I mean, even though that is the reality, maybe like in the background, and I'm just not seeing it. It's hard too, because it's like, you know, as like marginalized people, like every day you're getting knocked down. You know what I mean? Every day it's someone's reminding you that you ain't shit. You know what I mean? And so like you have to walk around with a certain confidence. You know what I mean? To take over this world and to take over whatever you're doing. You know. So it's hard to like think like that, and it's, you know, yeah, it's not easy, you know, but it's also like I'm lucky enough to come from a place where like I had to learn that shit young, you know what I mean? Because it's harder, it could be very like discouraging, you know, but like I love that shit, man. I love,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
Every time I've been slapped, I was talking about it like about a month ago on the podcast, but a year ago, actually a year ago next week, I was almost going to be on like late night with Seth Meyers. And that was my first time with this rapper named Hobo Johnson.
mm,
And it was going to be like a very big sort of thing, because it was only me and two other guys, and nobody knows who this rapper is. So it was like we were each going to get camera time. It would have been crazy. And then like he sort of had like a little panic attack thing, and they didn't like the way the clothes fit me, and it was a combination of both of those things, and they were like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, when people say that's show business, that's what that means. It's like very our industry is like cutthroat, and that's why I'm realizing that you have to be adaptable, you have to be flexible as an artist. I have to do this because right now the only thing I could get is like working with people over my computer and doing a viral monologue or some shit. That's it. Like it all starts in our homes, and our bodies are our homes. But when our bodies can't be in this space, our homes are our bodies.
you really have to have thick skin, you know, and you also have to know the things that, you know, you're willing to compromise for. And
Mm-hmm.
there are certain things where you just don't or won't compromise for, and that's 100% true and that's 100% valid too, because there's certain shit that you just have to hold dear to yourself, you know what I mean? But like you said, you have to be flexible, but in a way that, you know, I hope in a way that like doesn't damage your integrity, you know what I mean, as a person. At the end of the
Absolutely.
day, do all you got, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
It's easy to give your heart to institutions. Look, man, like you said, we need them, but at the same time, you can't, you have to invest. And that is why I like respect you as an artist, because clearly I don't have to know you very well to know that you can separate your body from an institution. And it's clear because you have so many relationships with them that you're your own person. It's like, no, they don't define me. I define them.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, at the end of the day, like, you know, like they want you for you. So it's like,
Hmm.
I'm gonna be me, you know, like rather than
Yes, dude.
what you think you have to be for a person. You,
Yeah.
you have to, man, you have to, I mean, to play this game, to be in this industry, you have to love yourself so much and you have to believe in yourself so much. And that shit is a lot of work, you know, and they're gonna try to knock you down in very insidious ways. And you have to keep bringing yourself back up, you know, because at the end of the day, like, it is show business. It's a business, you know, it's industry, and
Mhm.
like art doesn't come first for them. You know what I mean? Art does not,
Yes.
like art comes second or third or last to them, you know, and like, and you just have to be aware of these things when you're entering a space and stuff like that, you know, and like at the end of the day, like, you know, every single person is a brand. You're a brand, I'm a brand. It's like, how do you sell yourself? You know what I mean? And like how to like, and like contrary to like the ideology of like, you know, selling yourself to someone,
Yeah, I hate that, don't you?
it generally has like a negative connotation behind it because it
Right.
almost feels like you're removing a part of your integrity to compromise and be a part of something.
You have to package yourself in this industry, and the more you make sure that there's different facets to that package, the more durable will people see that you are.
It is about that, but it's also not necessarily like about packaging. Like I, I feel like I'm butchering this, but when I
No.
say like like selling yourself to someone is just to like to make someone believe in you the way that you believe in yourself. So, you know what I
Mm.
mean? Make someone invest in you the way that you have invested in yourself. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, like yeah.
You have to find how you're an asset
Hmm.
to people, and that starts with you. That's
Yeah.
the truth. That's what people who are a lot of actors like don't want to hear. It's like I should be able to walk into a room and like look at that person's 19. Look at Mateo, who's in Siblings Play. That boy is durable,
Yeah,
and
he
he's,
rocked
how
that.
old is he? 19, 18?
He's younger, but yeah, he definitely rocked that shit, you know.
Yeah, because he could sing. He was like Sunny and in the Heights at the Kennedy Center. And, it's great. Like, be an amazing singer at 17 years old, or like be a dope dancer. Like, your body's young. That's great. Use your instrument. To have the emotional maturity, to have that tenacity that I saw in Siblings Play. That shit is fire. But we'll come back to Siblings Play.
Yeah, let's come back. I love that play.
When did you get to Purchase, where I met you?
Oh, where yo man, Purchase was like
Were you
I
even there? How long were you there for? 2 years or
did for 3 years, and like
3 years?
every education and academic institution of my life, I literally just chose just because. Like
Right.
when I was, like when I was in middle school, choosing my high school, I went to Dewitt Clinton High School in the Bronx, and when I was choosing that, I didn't know anything about the school. I was just like, oh, they have an animals program. I want to play with animals. I don't want to learn it. Fucking
Wait, Purchase has an animal program?
no, my high school. So
Oh,
I applied to that, and then when I applied to Brooklyn College, I was just like, I'm gonna get out the Bronx. So I'm going to obviously the farthest place from the Bronx.
exactly. All the way down the D.
Yeah, and then the opposite happened where I was just like, yo, I want to get out of New York City, but I want to stay close. And like I heard Purchase had like a good writing program. So then
Mm.
I applied, and I found myself there. And man, Purchase was so amazing in a lot of ways. In in regards to like what I learned there, academic wise, I didn't learn shit.
Yeah, yeah. No.
Really, and maybe, and I'm sure like big part of that was my own fault.
You slowly learn more and more how useful and nutritious knowledge.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like whatever I learned at Purchase is like me sitting down in the library reading something because I loved what I was reading and like took my own personal interest and wanted to learn about myself a little bit more through reading. But it wasn't like going to a classroom and like paying attention. You know
What
I mean?
did you read in the Purchase library? Because I've been there in like the middle of the fucking night.
Yo, my freshman year, because like my first year at Purchase, I didn't get housing, so I had to stay at a hotel like off campus, which was dope.
2013.
Yeah, 2013, I believe. Yeah, I was.
Shit. Are you in that painting with everybody where it's like they stayed at a hotel for the first semester?
Yeah, I was, and that shit was dope.
Jane Cody and Zach Pensa.
Yeah. It was so dope, man. It was really, really cool. And I was just, yeah, like they put us in a hotel. You know what I mean? Like we get
Weird.
free like continental breakfast and dinner every night, and like we had like room. We had
that wasn't on your meal plan. You just got
No, it was just, and they had free wine. If you were over 21, you could get the wine downstairs. Wow. We also had someone who like cleaned our rooms like once a week, literally putting our dishes in the dishwasher. And I'm just like, what? Like this is elite package shit. So
fucking dope.
That was very short-lived, obviously. Purchase was a great time, man. I met a lot of cool people. Like, you know, I get really excited, especially, you know, talking to you too, because like the people that I met at Purchase who, you know, were in the theater at Purchase, you know, majoring in doing theater, like seeing you outside of that is just so it's really, really great.
It's weird, man. You know, do you remember Parade Stone by any chance?
Yes, yeah.
So I hardly knew Parade. Never worked with her ever. I think we were in like one acting class together.
Yeah.
And then now I like read her play a year ago about like sex robots, but like it's run by an Amazon company and it's like a dark comedy. It was this amazing thing called Cupid's Corner. And when I started developing readings with this podcast and streaming them on Facebook, hers was like the first like original play that like we produced it, and now we're like reshooting it for Zoom because like we found, like I'm sure you'll find with Kidnapping Jane Doe right now, that there's certain things about like doing this over technology that it's like a point of view, and sometimes it serves the play and sometimes it doesn't, but it mostly served this play very conveniently.
That's awesome, because like you know, like we write plays not for this medium, you know what I mean? So, like, for something to like smoothly transition and be adapted to, you know, a Zoom presentation is really, really awesome.
Oh yeah, it just feels shockingly convenient in a time like this, that like there's work that is so palatable that you can take it in over your computer and forget that you are watching something that isn't meant to be there, you know. It gets rid of that imposter syndrome for sure.
It's, you know, like I think we can use Zoom to our advantage sometimes. And so I was recently in Diana O's My Hate Letter to the Great American Theater, right?
On Howl Round, yeah,
and Dee Dee's amazing. And we had to perform it over Zoom, right? And it was so, man, I hate Zoom shit. I hate Zoom meetings. This is really dope though. I like talking because my boy, you know. But once let's do a Zoom meeting, I just get a headache from this. I need to be in person with people.
I feel you.
I was just like, fuck. But then like, yo, that experience was so magical. And it's like our performance was so magical because when we were performing it, you know, Zoom has this little chat box where like people can participate and chat. And so while we're performing, you know, they basically let everyone kind of comment and interact with us and really like speak their shit, you know what I mean? And so we were able to like read the comments while we're performing, and we were able to engage with the audience. And like, that shit felt more theater than theater feels, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you know, there's this like theater etiquette, like come, you know, and also like, you know, that was such a memorable experience. I'm like, this is what theater is supposed to feel like. And like, you know, one of the experiences that come into my mind too is like Jordan Cooper's Ain't No Mo, like seeing that. And like,
Jordan was on here last month.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, shout out to Jordan. He's cool.
He's phenomenal.
He's great, and like, being in that theater, being in that audience, watching the play, and I'm like, yo, this is what theater is supposed to feel like, you know, because at the end of the day, all these theaters like, oh, we put up plays to provoke conversation, but like, what's the conversation if we're just watching people play on stage and we can't really interact, and you know, we can't react to
Exactly.
something. And like, you know, when I was performing my hate letter, like the audience, they were reacting, and it was just it made it a collective experience rather than like showing up to something and just watching it passively, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that connection made the theater made that experience better, because at Purchase, a lot of what I was taught in my like heavily like liberal arts theater program was that like you have these spaces to play with. It's a playground, and like there is a lot of, because it's college and it's inevitable, there's a lot of like, let's be immersive, let's create immersive theater, let's immerse ourselves. And when you have the opportunity in theater to assess technology as part of the storytelling, I think there's something really special about when it works and when the audience can be part of it. Like Simon McBurney is this writer who like made people wear like these like either VR things or just like glasses or some shit in a Broadway house, and it was the first time like people were like part of that experience. But like with
Yeah,
something like Zoom, it's like our inevitable obstacle is bringing us together. It's that shit.
yeah, and it's like, yo, man, we've been doing the same shit for hundreds of years. Like, let's try new shit. You know, it's not gonna hurt. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
we've been doing the same shit for hundreds of years. You know,
Yeah.
let's, you know, it's not. I'm not gonna like change it up, but like sometimes you gotta switch things up a little bit. You know, just to play around to see what the possibilities are. You know.
Exactly. You're working on your plays over these screens now, and as like a playwright to have that like bird eye view to see if those moments work. So how has developing work changed?
So I'm actually entering my first official development meeting with the O'Neill tomorrow, actually, Tuesday, July 14th. So I
Nice.
can't necessarily speak to that yet. Um, but I could already, I mean, like, I'm super excited to like meet with everybody and meet with the team and meet with my collaborators, you know, but it's just like, there's this like inevitable obstacle of like doing it through Zoom, you know, which like, this just sucks, man. Doing this shit through Zoom sucks. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes. Of
it
course
just
it does.
sucks. But
Yeah.
what I will say is that oftentimes I will find myself completely surprised by like how well something is able to work as well. You know, because like like with my hate, that shit smooth, seamless. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm surprised at how stuff ends up working and actually like it's not as bad as I initially assumed for it to be. You know, but I'm excited to be developing my work with and
Yeah.
and so yeah, I don't necessarily have an answer because this is my first time developing something through Zoom. But I think it's less about like going through the play and like, you know, what it normally would feel like in a room where you're like reading the whole play with your cast, and like it's really just going to be a bunch of conversations and, you know, trying to see, you know, let's see what that's about.
Yeah, I really like Zoom because obviously the obstacle doesn't help. Sometimes it can, and that's great. But this is primarily a mode for artists to develop work, I feel like. You know, there's so much conversation about like, let's get in a room together.
Mhm.
And now we have time, and now we have a resource. It's not the most convenient or reliable resource. Like, if your Wi-Fi sucks, you're fucked
Yeah.
and you can't
Yeah.
be part of it in a meaningful way. And sometimes that shit happens. That shit hasn't happened like too drastically yet, but you know, it's inevitable if you're like doing a live presentation thing and you're trying to, you know, do theater, and like things
There's
things
also
will happen.
Wi-Fi going out, you know what I mean? Like,
What have you been watching, by the way, during all this?
so I was watching Ozark for the first time. I remember watching Ozark for like 3 years ago. I'm like, it's whack. But I watched it again, yo. That is actually fire. Like,
It's incredible. It's
yeah,
layers on layers on layers of
yeah.
details.
And I'm sure people have compared it to Breaking Bad. It reminds me of Breaking Bad, where
Sure.
like
There's no Ozark without Breaking Bad, but there's no Breaking Bad without The Sopranos. There's no Sopranos without The Wire. I don't know. I don't know what the timeline of that is. That could be totally incorrect.
I was
But
watching that. I remember when Love Is Blind first came out. That shit was the funniest thing on there.
you watched Love Is Blind? What?
Yeah,
How is Love Is Blind? I'm not interested, but like, is it good? Is it fun?
well, I will say it is my first time watching reality TV, and I'm
Mm.
like, now I get why people watch this shit. It is the funniest. Like, I found myself emotionally, like, wholly invested in these strangers within like the first 15 minutes of the first episode. I'm like, why do I care about these people? But then, like, I find myself rooting for people, hating people. I mean, that show was great.
That's
It's
amazing.
it's so messy. It's so messy, and I love it.
I love the mess a little bit sometimes, so long as it's controlled and it's far away from me in a little
It goes
box.
there. It's there. There's no controlling the mess. They go there, and that's why I love them. Just these
I
people.
love Big Brother. That's my shit. Do you know what the premise of that show is?
I've never watched Big Brother, but the things that I have seen about Big Brother is just like naked people taking a shower.
That is a weird part of it. For
Yeah.
me, it's because they have 24-hour camera things and shit. So like they're just naked all the time. They get caught saying like insensitive things all the time because these people are just they're playing a part of themselves and they're like, oh well, now I'm off. But like, no, you're not. You're
Yeah.
never up. Like there's people, they catch people fucking saying Drake lyrics they shouldn't be saying all sorts of bullshit, but they're all stuck in a house for 3 months, and it's like, man, this guy almost went home week 1, but now he's like in the top 4. Damn, bro, you're like 70, and all these kids are like 20. How are you doing this? It's crazy to me. What are you most excited for about when theater comes back?
Um, I miss the feeling of being in like a cold, poorly lit black box. Like it's a very specific feel on your skin. It's a very specific smell when you enter a theater, and I can't wait to go back into it and like be with my friends. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely,
be
man.
with some really dope people, and like I'm lucky enough to like only have worked with people I really like in my career. I'm super lucky to have that. And so like, yeah, I just can't wait to get back into a space with my friends. And also like, I can't wait to sit at the couch at the Lark. For people who, they always see me at the couch. Shout out to the Lark.
I love that place, man. I almost spent a lot of time there had I not sort of jumbled into the flea. But I went there the week after I graduated when I'd gotten like one off-Broadway play that was like next to a police station on like 54th and 8th. And it was, yeah, like American Theater of Actors, like over there in Hell's Kitchen.
I mean, like, I know that area. I'm not sure the specific theater, but I know that area though.
Yeah, it's weird. It's literally, it shares a door with a precinct. It's wild. I was just walking around that area, like auditioning and putting up lists for things like I won't even be called for. And I walked into the Lark and I saw their library. And actually, my teacher had passed away at Purchase, Charles, my senior year. And his memorial was at the Lark. So that was my first time I was there. Yeah, in the room they workshop in. And then I came back there and I was like, this is a comfortable place. And also there's a shit ton of plays here.
My first time at the Lark was actually while I was at Purchase. We had gone to, I think I was in Winter Miller's class, plays and playground. And part of that class is to like go into the city and like watch plays. So I think, yeah, my first time at the Lark is our class going to the Lark to watch a bare bones studio production of Skeleton Crew. And that shit was dope. Like, it was like a staged reading, but like the actors were on like iPads. Like, yeah, it was so crazy. And I was like, this place is dope. And then many years later, like 2-3 years later, I learned that they had a like offered a fellowship, the Van Leer Fellowship, and like, you know, one of my close friends who was a staff member there, TJ Weaver, was like, yo, y'all need to apply to this shit. This is for y'all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The first time around, I kind of ignored it because I was like, I'm not applying to anything. I'm not ready to do anything. And then when I was ready, I applied for it, and I received the Van Leer Fellowship that year with Erica Dispenza. And yo, like my first couple, because like the way the fellowship works is that there really isn't like a structure to it. Like they offer a lot of programs for you to be a part of, but they don't necessarily like require you to do it, anything. So my first like 9-10 months of the residency, I was just like, they just gave me a bunch of money. I don't even know what to do. Like I never go to the LARC, you know what I mean? And I don't know what it was, but like the last 2 months, I just like got super close and was so comfortable there. And literally before this pandemic, you will find me there almost every day. And then after the pandemic, I might be back to, you know what I mean? So I kind of just fell in love with that. It's become definitely like a home for me, you know, to like literally go to use their bathroom. Because it's a nice private bathroom on 42nd Street. You know, I go there to write. I go there to take naps. I go there to eat my lunch. You know, and like, every time I'm there, I'll always see like a really nice familiar face.
That's why seeing the flea going through the changes it needs to become even fuller space than it was already attempting to be, because that was the place I used I would, because like I said, I'm commuting from Long Island, I would find like my little hot spots, you know, and that was literally a hot spot because I was on that Wi-Fi all fucking day on my laptop and phone. And I was printing out headshots. They had copies of my headshots and my resumes when I needed them. They had what?
The LARC?
The flea.
Oh, the flea. Okay.
Yeah. Seeing.
Oh, okay. Got you.
Yeah. Dude, I dart, man. That's why it's my goal with this thing that I have people on and like eventually we could talk for like hours for no reason.
Yeah,
But I also realize that everything I say really counts because I'm putting it out there in the world.
True, or we could edit this shit like chippity chop chop, you know?
Hell yeah, man. That is one thing I've totally gained during this pandemic. I edit every episode of this, and sometimes there is like 2.5 hours of footage. So I chop that up. I chop out my ums. I chop out your your likes. I cut to the point.
Keep this. Don't keep everything. Make this shit messy, bro.
Well, that's gonna make my life significantly easier. So that is totally.
Bro, you could put this. It don't even gotta be perfect, bro. It just gotta be you and me being real with each other.
That's what I love about this stuff, right? And that is really what I like about you, because you're not afraid to be yourself on anything or in any space. And I know so many people who are like, well, you gotta be, you know, like sure, there's like playing the game and shit like that, but like you could be yourself. Who fucking cares?
I mean, it's the thing, like sometimes it's really hard to be comfortable in certain spaces, you know what I mean? Especially when you feel like you know, like you pointed out, like theater is this elitist institution, and like it's hard to feel comfortable in those places, you know what I mean? And so it's like, yeah, man, like I'm gonna say either you like me or you hate me, whether this is gonna be my first time here or it's gonna be my last time here. Like, you gotta be you.
Yeah, Jordan was saying that shit about Ain't No Mo and how that opening scene, which by the way, it was sold out, so I never got to see Ain't No Mo.
Oh my god.
But he sent me the script and I got to read it before I spoke with him. And he was like, in that opening scene, that's why it's as polarizing as people say it is. And I'm like, that's amazing that, you know, looking back at 2019, that was polarizing then. Because the language we use now in the theater, even since then, like has completely evolved and manifested into just something that is a welcoming space for everybody. But what he was talking about was how he wanted to make space for, you know, Black audience members who, in like his experience when he's gone to see theater in Broadway and in institutions he's familiar with, people like were like, why are you like laughing and being loud? All this like white policing and shit.
Yeah, I mean, that policing shit sucks. And so like that I just felt so good. You know, like being in that audience watching that show that night reminded me of like when I was a kid, you know, going to see movies at like Bay Plaza movie theater. That shit was fucking raggedy.
Mm.
Like we used to sneak into movies and like people will like be eating whole meals, like bringing in Popeyes in the movie theater, and people. I think I watched this like no, actually this one time I went to this movie theater on 161st Street by the courthouses, and I was watching Insidious, I believe. And yo, people were like screaming at the screen, like throwing popcorn, eating a fucking chicken sandwich. Someone's mom is busting out a whole lamb chop. Like people, like you know what I mean? Like it was
Yes.
literally an event. And like when I was a kid, I'm like, yo, shut the fuck up. I'm just trying to watch this shit, right? And then, but now being in theater, you know, when I have a visceral reaction, I want to react and I want to say something. I want to curse at someone. I want to snap my finger. And I know that not every play, you know,
calls for that shit, but fuck you also. Like,
yeah,
people
like,
exist.
It's the thing is like you know, you should know when you should respect what's going on stage, and you also should know when it's, you know, a time where you can like react and when like it's kind of called for, you know, like Jordan's play, like it encourages that you react. And like being in that space, I'm like, holy shit, I miss this. I miss people like talking to like the actors. I miss people talking to the stage. I miss people talking to each other, reacting, and like being part of this event, you know what I mean?
Theater is so like transactional in such a beautiful way sometimes too. Like when I was watching Siblings Play, which is the last play I saw in New York, by the way. I don't know about you. I think you had gone, because my friends Brandon and Vanessa, shout out to Brandon and Vanessa, they also saw Kidnapping Jane Doe. So when they heard your name in Siblings Play, they were like, isn't that the guy? But we were put in the very front row because there were literally no seats left. And there were, I believe, students there that night, or like a lot of young people. And they were all like right over there. And I was right in front of them, and they were sitting right on the edge of the stage. And I'm like, oh, this is just what I need right now. If there's like my last moment to, you know, expose myself to the public, let it be this way.
Yeah, it was dope. I think I saw it twice, and like, did I see it twice? I think I did see it twice, and it definitely was it was like during the time where like literally every theater shut down, and Jenna was like, no, let's put up one more shot.
Fuck
And
yeah.
it was my last theatrical experience, and I'm really glad that
Shout out to Homebound, right? Did you work on that already?
Oh yeah, I was part
How
of the
was that? Talk about that shit.
second edition. Homebound was really dope, yo. Like it, you know, like I'll be real. During this quarantine, I haven't been as like productive as like I could be. You know what I mean? And the thing is, like, you know, what is could be and stuff like that. And like, you know, but and sometimes I fear like, oh my God, like I haven't written in so long. Am I a writer? Do I still know how to write? And I was kind of nervous going into it because I was like, shit, I haven't really written so long. So I was kind of scared, but I was so excited to tackle on that challenge. And I wrote my piece, and like I sent it to my actor Bobby. We got over a Zoom meeting with Taylor Reynolds, who is director.
Yeah, director, right? They worked on the 24-hour plays. They were like, people would be like,
it was just really dope to be working on theater outside of theater. That was my first Zoom experience, and like it was really cool. Like I mean, like what they're doing is amazing, and like, and shout out to everyone who's a part of it. And you know, like they're raising money to feed kids. You know what I mean? Feed 100 kids, and like that's an amazing thing. You know,
being philanthropic and making space and making funds when you can. Like I literally, what my shit that I'm doing is proof of that. I raised $1,300, and like while it was like not, I mean, it was a little bit of work, but it wasn't that hard. And it's like, can you imagine if everybody fucking did shit like that on a daily basis? If everybody was trying to raise funds, we'd have so many more resources. People don't understand. It was like all money raised on Facebook. It's so practical.
And like, you know, like people, you know, people fight in different ways, and people are activists in different ways, and people do shit differently. You know what I mean? And like that's a perfect example of someone putting their money where their mouth is. You know what I mean? Because I feel like, especially people in theater, or just people in general, you know, everybody is an activist and everybody has something to say and everybody wants the best for the world and stuff like that, but nobody's necessarily making those things into like actions and turning those things into actions. And that's a perfect example of like doing what you love and actually like, you know, yeah, doing what you love and doing it for a good cause and like actually doing it rather than talking about it. You know?
Exactly. It's very easy to talk, especially when I started this podcast. I was like, oh, now I'm doing it. And then, like, very quickly, I was like, this is a lot of work. And now, by the months of just, you know, the laboring and like the editing myself and the scheduling, and like with my friend Mariah, she helps. And it's wonderful that like I'm building a community of artists because there's really no other way to get out there. And I had like a little taste of what New York looks like. I didn't grow up in New York, so the interconnected aspect of theater and different venues and stuff, it wasn't very clear to me until like literally 2 years ago. And I was like, oh, David's over there, but he's also over there. That's so funny to me. He's fucking everywhere. Yeah. I think we fucking did it. So I think we did. I think we did the thing. I guess the last thing I will ask you is if you have any other shit coming up.
A residency with O'Neill, and that's coming up tomorrow. And then after that, I will be spending my year with the New York Theater Workshop as their 2050 fellow, along with 5 other really dope artists. And I'm actually really happy that, man, this cohort's amazing.
Tyler Thomas is one of your directors, right? Love Tyler.
Yeah, she's dope. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just so happy to be part of this group. I won't go into detail why, but like everybody in that group has inspired me already and has made me brave already.
Isn't there one person in that group who is also doing the public residency at the same time?
Nisi, of course, she's taking over the world. The world is not
fucking crazy.
Man, I feel like everybody knows Nisi, and Nisi's one of those people who she's super low key, and she is finessing. The definition of finessing.
The level of finesse. I guess we'll just call this finessing with David Zhang.
Finessing with David Zhang, yeah. And you know, and shout out to her too. You know, like she's also from the Bronx. She actually doesn't live too far away from me.
No shit.
Yeah, and I always get excited when I meet other artists from the Bronx. It's because you know, like you grew up in an environment where like, yeah, you know.
No, I love that.
You don't
see, it's like what we were talking about with Purchase, but like especially even more because like the Bronx is so far. It can feel so far from institutions, but
completely. I mean, growing up, we're completely there's a complete disregard for people here, you know. So, you know, seeing people who, I mean, in the same thing with Brooklyn and parts of Manhattan and Queens too, you know, like when you grow up in like the ghetto and you don't have access to a lot of things, it's such a pure and good feeling when I see another person who has like quote unquote like made it out, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that means.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
You're the OG, man.
Have me, man. I'm excited.
Word.